Welcome back to Elizabeth Plants. I'm Elizabeth, and today we are going to chat about selling my stuff before the move. So this video is kind of going to be a two-parter, kind of. Today I'm going to be talking about selling my pottery and plant supplies, which is mostly just pottery. And then in another video I'm going to talk about selling plants. When I am saying selling pots or selling plants, what I'm talking about doesn't necessarily mean selling for money. It can also mean trading. It can mean gifting for free. However, I start with selling for money and then might accept exchanges of product or other plants, pots, and if it doesn't sell by the time I move, it will be gifted. Or if it's not doing well, it will be gifted, with the understanding that it's not doing so well. But I go through kind of a process. And so today we're just going to be talking about the pottery and the equipment and stuff like that. And I'm going to primarily focus on the pottery because the pottery is a bit more of an extensive process than any other plant products would be. So that's really what I'm focusing on, but a lot of this stuff applies to like maybe a moss pole. I'm not selling any moss poles, but like maybe a moss pole or bamboo stakes or just kind of anything else like that. I do not generally sell like half-used like liquid products or anything like that. Generally, unless it's like very full, but if there's just a little bit left in it, I'm going to aim to use it by the end if possible, or I'm either gonna give it away, donate it, or toss it. I'll follow proper instructions for tossing if it's something like neem, but definitely more on the stuff range than the chemicals range, if that makes sense. So what do I do first? Obviously, the first thing you have to do if you're gonna sell something is decide what you're gonna sell. So like a month ago, no, it's not been a month, but a while ago, I went through my entire pottery collection and I either repotted plants that were in like breakable pottery or pottery that I wanted to get rid of, and then I sorted. So I sorted between the pots that I wanted to get rid of and the pots that I wanted to keep. And then within the pots that I want to get rid of, I sorted kind of by type and size. And then it doesn't look like it, but I'm going to include a picture up here of where I was holding most of the stuff that I was going to be selling. This is not by any means all of the stuff that I am selling or have sold, but this is most of it. There was some out in the living room area and some that were still on the plants at this point when I took this photo. But this is a good chunk of it. It's not by any means most of my collection. I would say maybe 50% of my collection. That is not like the clear ones. I didn't sell any of those, and is not my like self-watering ones. I don't know if you can see that, but I didn't sell any of my self-watering or my like clear plastic. I'm keeping those, I'm using those. I don't need to be transporting everything. I don't love everything, and most of the stuff I don't love is ceramic or terracotta, which I think terracotta is ceramic technically, but I don't know, so I'm not going to make that claim here. I mean, because none of the ones I'm selling are plastic for the most part, cleaning is a bit of a different process. So that brings us to step 2, which is to clean everything. I'm not going to try and sell a dirty pot, with a couple of exceptions, which I'll talk about in a sec. So I have to clean them. Now the thing about ceramic, at least most of the ceramic that I sold, is that it's porous, and same with terracotta, it's porous. So you don't want to use any chemicals or soaps on them. There might be certain soaps you can use. I don't have those soaps that I know of or that I feel comfortable with, so it's kind of just water. So I will include some footage over me talking right now of me cleaning off the pots. Now there were some plastic or entirely glazed ceramic that I did sell. Those I could have technically used soap on because assuming they didn't have any like chips or breakages. However, I did not. I opted to just use water. So I don't know where in this video you guys are viewing it, but I definitely make sure that wherever I'm washing it, if you have access to washing these things outside, absolutely 100% wash them outside. However, I do not. So I had to wash them in my sink. So I have this little like drain cover that I put over the drain that will catch as much of the dirt, if not all of the dirt as possible. Obviously it's not going to catch like dust particles, but it's going to collect any chunks or any thick pieces from going down my drain to protect my drain. I also made sure to empty out as much dirt from the inside of the pottery as possible into the trash before putting it in the sink. Now there was a pot in the process that I didn't realize had dirt in it because there was another pot in it. So that was an oopsie on my part. Definitely try not to do that. Be a little bit more detail oriented than I had been on this day. So if it's plastic or it's entirely glazed, it is a little bit easier because it's a smooth surface. You can mostly just wipe it out. You can rinse it if it's got residue of any kind. Scrub it if it's got any sort of sticky residue. Mine didn't. So mostly I just rinsed and that was enough, but I did scrub any and all of my pots anyway. So then if you have a ceramic pot that is not entirely glazed on the inside or the outside and is therefore able to kind of absorb or wick up some of the water, you definitely do not want to use soaps because it just gets weird. So I just stuck with water and kind of a little scrub, like a little handheld scrub brush. And I just went around and scrubbed anywhere that I saw anything. I did not scrub it perfect. I just don't generally do that. So I scrubbed it to the best of my ability in a reasonable way, rinsed it out, set it out to dry. I just set them back in the room, but you could like set them out in the sun or something to dry if you'd like. And then terracotta I do ever so slightly differently sometimes. So if you have terracotta pottery, you know that it can get like brown and white and kind of gross looking on the outside, and that's just from all of the minerals and stuff in the water and in the soils. And so what I do to try and clean that up, it's not perfect. It definitely, if I wanted it to be perfect, it would take a long time. But I do a mixture of vinegar and water. So what I did is I just put vinegar in a bowl and then used water in the sink and dipped my brush in the vinegar and then kind of pseudo mixed the vinegar with the water, and same process, you just scrub it. Sometimes in my experience, one go over is not enough, but it'll look clean while it's wet, and then when it dries, it will be less clean looking, but more clean than it was, if that makes sense. So all of the pottery that I have, I chose to just scrub through once, and then whatever it looked like at that point is how I sold it. Of course, I included, we'll talk about the listing in a little bit, but I disclose that it's a little dirty if it's a little dirty. So that's kind of my process for cleaning pottery. Now, if I had any glass pottery, I didn't. But if I had any like glass pottery like jars or something like that, I would probably use dish soap and then also run them through the dishwasher. And then if they were still in need of cleaning, I would soak them. Kind of depends on how dirty it is. But you have the option to use soap with the glass, or at least I choose to. Again, this is what I do. This is not like the end all be all, but if you're not sure how to go about it, you can test out the way that I do it and see if it works for you. So to review, we pick out the pot and then we clean the pot. And then of course we have to list the pot. Now there are a ton of ways you can sell your stuff that's used. I personally I don't like to go too crazy and overwhelm myself, so I just use Facebook Marketplace. It's easy, and then if you feel comfortable with some things, you can like do shipping. I don't choose to do shipping for anything that is breakable, like a ceramic or a terracotta. However, I did have some metallic pots, which I cleaned just like everything else. I did offer shipping for those brass bronzy cash pots. There are a couple major pieces of listing the item, regardless of the platform you use, that I think is very important. Of course, depending on your platform, optional. But if you're gonna do a good job and sell reasonably, definitely do these things. So first is to take photos. You want to take good photos. While I did not necessarily do this because I'm a little lazy, I recommend finding a plant that's in like a smaller pot or a plastic pot that you can kind of set in the pot to show it off with a plant and photograph it that way, but you don't have to do that. That would just probably make it sell a little bit easier because it's more aesthetically pleasing. I didn't do that. I just put any pot that was able to fit on a wooden shelf, photographed it that way, and then I would pick it up and I would show the bottom of it, the like top down into it, and then if there was detailing on it, I would get a close-up. If there was like an attached tray, I'd get kind of a close-up into where the pot and the tray meet to the best of my ability. And so that's kind of my thing for photographing it. Then you want to title it just kind of something like what it is. For example, large blue ceramic houseplant pot or pottery. Whatever kind of works for your item. And then in the description, depending on your platform, you might have options to like do drop downs for some of this information, but definitely somewhere in the listing, you need to make sure you include measurements. So height measurements, like the diameter of the opening measurements, and then if the bottom's significantly different than the top, I recommend also including a base measurement. Now, if it has a tray that is attached or separate, include the measurements for the tray, and then also include if it's attached or separate. Include a description of the textures or designs if there is any. Include a description of the color if it's not like terracotta pot. Obviously, you know it's like a regular terracotta unless said otherwise, but definitely do a description of the color, the type of pot it is, if it's fully glazed, if it's not fully glazed, if there's a drainage hole or there's not a drainage hole, what kind of condition it's in. So for example, you could say like new condition, just a little dirty. You could say very dirty, one chip, photograph the chip if there is a chip in it, or a scuff or something noticeable. Pretty much anything else that's relevant. So like if you want to do or best offer, include that. If you want to include like pickup only, things that are specific to you and your situation, include that as well. But in my opinion, it is so important to be as descriptive as possible in the description. Because, and this is again just my opinion, not a requirement for most platforms, but at least most platforms that I know, but it's kind of sleazy to just take one photo from one direction and then title it and say pick up only. It's kind of sleazy, and most people aren't going to want to buy it because they don't know how big it is. Depending on the size of the pot, you can include like a measurement, like a ruler or a tape measure or something next to the pot in the picture. I don't do that. I just include the measurements. And if they're approximate, I include that. Or like if they're just slightly above 10 inches in diameter, I'll say just over 10 inches in diameter, or like nearly 10 inches in diameter, or something like that. But yeah, definitely include all the details, as much of the details as humanly possible in the description. That's super important. And while that's kind of the gist of selling pots, you kind of rely on others from that point on to reach out to you, ask any questions that they have, request more photos if they want to. Some people don't read the description, so they'll ask you about the information in the descriptions. Obviously, don't be an asshole. Like, just answer the question or refer them to the description. And then, you know, if you're doing a pickup type thing, schedule a meeting, blah, blah, blah. The rules are kind of dependent on where you list it and how you're selling it, like pickup versus shipping sort of thing. So that's not much that I can offer in. But I wanted to just slide in here and make this video because that is a lot of the things that I have going on in the background at all times in my plant journey, not just because I'm moving, but if I'm ever trying to get rid of something used and I would like to receive compensation back for it, or I think it's worth money, and I don't just want to donate it, then this is how I go about selling it on Facebook Marketplace. And I've been asked in the past what I do with some of like my old stuff that I've mentioned getting rid of in videos. I've also been accused of selling things poorly in my videos without a description of how I sell things or if I'm selling things. So I thought I'd make this video to just kind of communicate my process with you guys. I mentioned that I'm moving in Austin and I wanted to film the entire process, and this is part of the process. Let me know down in the comments below if you do anything different, if you have any tips or pointers for the cleaning or photographing process. Definitely appreciated. Would love to hear how everybody goes about their process, or if they do it the same. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this kind of content, and subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I post more houseplant videos. I will see you next time.